Okay, so we've got two representations of a squat, and we're going to say that both of them are squatting below parallel, but they're going to achieve this by two different mechanisms, because the orientation within the pelvis is going to be different in the two cases. So on this side, this is going to be somebody that's typically going to be like a narrow ISA type of person that's going to be biased towards an inhaled axial skeleton. So they're going to be counter-nutated in the sacrum. So we have a relative posterior tilt of the sacrum with an anterior position of the ilium. So again, this is the inhaled position. So I have an eccentrically oriented pelvic diaphragm, and so that allows me to sit down, and the ischial tuberosity is going to be relatively over the heel. So because I'm counter-nutated, I'm actually going to have the position of the lumbar spine is actually going to be moving towards flexion. So I'm actually reducing the lordosis, and I'm going to get some posterior compression above this, just as a relative position to the lumbar spine. So you'll see this typically in a lot of Olympic weightlifters. The really good Olympic weightlifters can get into this position because they need the depth, and then they have to center the weight over their foot. And so this orientation at the very bottom of the snatch or the clean, you're going to see that orientation. They may not hit it until the very, very end, but they're going to get there because that's going to allow the depth to occur. In this other orientation, though, we actually may see this in a wide ISA, but it's going to be less ideal. So because they're nutated, what you're going to get is you're going to get a posterior orientation of the entire pelvis. For this to happen, I have to have eccentric orientation throughout the posterior lower aspect of the rib cage, right? So this is below the level of the scapula, so they might be compressed in the upper thorax, but you're going to get this huge eccentric orientation here because, again, I've got an entire orientation of the pelvis. Much less desirable because the stress on the posterior structures in this case is much greater than it is in this case, right? And again, what you're going to see is probably a little bit less depth. So this person is the one that can sit way down, but the pelvic diaphragm here is not descended in this case. So this person is going to use a lot of hip IR, and so you're going to see their knees deviate laterally as they squat to get this depth. What's actually happening is not hip ER in that case. So as they start squatting and they start to achieve depth, they actually turn the femur inward. Okay, and then so that's how they're going to achieve that below parallel position. So it's actually internal rotation. As they deviate out, they turn that way, and you can actually see the orientation of the whole pelvis wanting to tilt backwards as I do that. So that's how they're going to get down into that deep squat. So once again, less desirable because of the load on the posterior structures relative to this one, and because I don't have that descended diaphragm, I've got to rely more on hip IR. Now the interesting thing is because of the orientation of the pelvis as it is, they should have more hip IR. They probably have more shoulder IR as well than this person who would be biased towards ER. So because I'm biased towards inhalation, I squat deeper, I sit down between my heels, and because I'm more oriented towards IR, the ischial tuberosity is going to fall behind the heel. I'm going to have to rely on lumbar flexion. So one of the dead giveaways on this person can usually sit down and carry on a conversation with you. This person has to reach forward. They're going to throw their head forward to counterbalance this eccentric orientation expansion in the lower part of the thorax and into the lumbar spine. So they really have to offset the load. So this person can probably squat a lot, okay, because when I put load on my shoulders, it allows me to stay a little bit more forward. But again, you're going to see them squat with their hips back a little bit more, and you're going to typically see that whole posterior orientation that's less desirable in a squat. Yeah. Go ahead and say what you said.
So basically the femur is internally rotating at the bottom of the squat for the person on the right.
Yes.
Until it hits a constraint.
And yes.
And then the pelvis has to reorient somehow with respect to the rest of the body.
I don't have any external rotation here available to me, so the pelvis just keeps falling backwards, and so it's just sitting down like this, so this relative position change doesn't take place. So I don't have this cool reorientation kind of thing. It just tilts backwards.
Mm-hmm.
Now, So this isn't counter-nutation where this is. So this is normal. I've got great intra-abdominal pressure in this case. This case, I don't have it. So because I can't counter-nutate, this literally becomes my counter-nutation of the pelvis because I can't do it here. So I have to expand posteriorly. So this relative position change of this moving back is the sacrum and the lumbar spine in this case. You see it? So we just moved it up, but unfortunately that's going to load the posterior structures that I don't want to load.